Hello, my name is Susan Johnson, and this is my screencast project for my graduate course entitled Problems in Literary Criticism, instructed by Dr. Michael Morgan. After much deliberation, I decided to analyze J.R. Carpenter's work along the Briny beach, which you see a little explanation of it before you. And I decided to go with this for several reasons. The first primary reason is that it was just very pleasing to the eye as well as easy on the eyes. I will start out by just observing this piece without any interaction. Morris and Swiss, page 337, stated that some digital literature may be considered as poetics of a visual rather than a linear register. Furthermore, although some of this piece is generated by a computer program, I agree that it's still authored by Carpenter, since he was the one that had to load the code, and he picked out the words in other works from writers such as Conrad, Carroll, and Darwin, which is discussed in this small piece that you see on your screen. He also had to place everything in a specific order, too. This can also be found on the review on lmcipworks.com. In addition, I feel that if this piece were to be placed in a digital picture frame that allowed it to keep generating itself without stopping, it could be hung on a wall and be considered an art form unto itself. I'm going to launch the work now. And you can see that it starts out with just a series of dots and squiggles, and you see the computerized and generated poetry on your left. It just appears. There's no movement yet. Now you can see some of the imagery is also appearing, and some words in the gold letters. Also some more text is appearing where the squiggle lines were, kind of a darker tan color. I'd like you to note the color scheme that Carpenter uses to pull the reader into his piece. Earth, sky, and water are represented in the text. Also positioning of the text. You can see up here where these little dots are that you can also see that you can interact with it. You can cause them to go backwards. Represents the sky. The background itself is a tan color, such as the sand. You can see that the poetry over on the left is a dark blue, also another kind of earth tone, and as well as the gold and the brown text that you see that's continuously moving from right to left. The images that come through as well range from colored to black and white. And there's also imagery that of text that races across the images. The imagery starts out very nicely. You can see if when I interact with it, you can pause it a little bit and make it go back, so you could catch some of the image, although it's not going at a really fast pace. You can also note that he shows the one side of the beach in his work where the reader sees the beauty of the sand and the surf and the imagery. You see the water. We also saw the sand, and now we see the water hitting the beach, the surf. And to me, a very calming effect, and it strikes emotions with the reader, pleasant feelings, good memories, perhaps, of being at a beach. I like to focus my attention at this time over to the left of the screen, where you will see the computer-generated poetry. As you can see, as I pass the cursor over it, I try to click on it. I cannot interact with it. There are also no visible hyperlinks for me to click on. However, if I do catch a word and double click on it, you have to be rather quick. It does change the color of the word in the background to blue with white wording. However, it does not speed it up or slow it down. It just keeps at this steady pace. This is really the only interaction I'm allowed to do regarding this text. I can't add my own input or go to another link. And it's apparent too that Carpenter goes beyond the traditional conventions of poetry here regarding or such as line rhythm and sense making of the words themselves. The text over in this area that is generated is very unconventional, at times makes little sense. If you look at sediments navigate the salt waters, coastlines mark the glacier, glaciers wreck, although some of it does appear pleasant sounding phrases, and it does make sense, but a lot of it doesn't make sense too. Tropical islands obfuscate, capes scan the swell, return along the distant wading. Some of it doesn't seem like really good grammar. Other observations regarding this poetry on the left side of the screen is it's a combination of Texans and Scriptons. The material used is not only part of the code, but it's also viewable to the reader as well. If you go back to the information that the piece had given at the start of this screencast, the poetry is discernible after reading it several times. I have viewed it several times prior to this, just observing it. The same response has the same result. In other words, it's predictable. No matter what I do with this side, I try clicking and interacting, I can't control it. It just keeps generating the poetry and keeps moving, at least at this point. I would say also it's also not determinable, because each time it's viewed, this particular part of the work also regenerates or rewrites itself. It's also intransient. The moment the reader starts the program, the words, the scripts start to appear on the left side of the screen. And the poetry is somewhat impersonal. The reader cannot interact with the poetry or text. It appears random. It's available to the reader at all times. And no matter what time of the day I have viewed this piece, it remains the same. There are no links embedded in the text. And finally, it's generative and performative. The computer generates the poetry according to the code loaded by the author, and perhaps it's cyborg in nature as well. It also performs in a sense that it mimics a walk on the beach regarding the textual movement, and the pacing is not too fast or slow. This can be found in Koskema, page 132 through 133. I'm going to interact a little bit more. I'm a little bit curious about J.R. Carpenter's name and credits he has. So I'm going to pass the cursor and see if I can interact with it. And it appears that they're both links. I'm going to click on credits and see where that takes me. And what it does is it brings me to a little bit of background about along the Briny Beach, where it gives you information as to what it is, coastline generator, the source code loads the following variables, and he even shows us the code, and also shows the different words, different phrases that were put into this code. I noticed too that it also talks about the world's plastic, you know, the dark side of man's influence on nature. Now I'm going to return back to his piece, and it appears that it starts over again. I can't go back to where I was. I can only start over again. And as you can see, the words that are generating are different again. They've been rewritten. And it starts out with the left side, the generated poetry starting first. Once again we see the shell that comes into play, and then the gold text, the dark tan text begins. You can see words racing across. You can pause it. I found out you can pause the words, but they disappear when the image disappears. Also, they go at such a fast pace, it's hard to keep up. You can only catch bits and pieces. The other texts on here and poetry, they're easier to actually read and follow their pace. There's a word that keeps showing up quite a bit is weirs. I know weirs in Old English means ugly or worse, which could pertain to the plastic that J.R. Carpenter mentioned under the credits. You know, some of those things can be considered ugly and worse in those terms. I can also stop or actually make some of the text go backwards. The text and the imagery that is going from right to left on the screen. You can see the upper. If I put the cursor on top of it, more towards the middle of the words, it actually stops it. But it doesn't seem to disrupt any of the other piece in terms of everything else keeps moving. And I notice I have to move the cursor farther away for it to resume. This part is talking about flight of Canada geese. I'm going to start it over again. You can see the generated poetry once again rewrites itself. It's different. However, the text in gold and dark tan and the imagery starting with the shell and the words that are in the right hand corner where the little dots are, they are in a loop type program where they go back to the beginning. They keep repeating themselves. I have not seen any rewrites. It just loops back to the beginning, shows the same pictures, shows the same either storyline. This is a storyline here.